Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Town Hall. If you've been to any of these before, you know the format. Allan's going to make some remarks. I've got some questions on me that have come in through the RSVP list, and I'll probably start with some of those questions. We've also got people on live stream, and they're going to feed questions as they come in. If they're easy, we'll ask the president those questions. But we would really like your participation. So when Allan's done with his remarks and answers a few questions, if you could just come up to the microphones and ask your question, very much appreciate that. And without further ado, let me introduce our 11th president, Allan Gilmour.
Thanks, Michael. Good morning, everyone. You know, it was a year ago today that I was introduced by the Board of Governors as the interim president of Wayne State University. Two of the governors are sitting right down there, Annetta Miller and Paul Masseron. If you think things have gone well in the last year, I'll take the credit. If not, they did the dirty deed. But what a difference a year does make. I'm now a sophomore. I got passing marks, I think, in my freshman year, but I'm not sure I made the dean's list, at least the dean's list I wanted to be on. Another change is that a few months ago, the title interim president turned into permanent president. Now, I don't mean permanent in the sense of the leader of North Korea or something like that, but a little more permanent than interim, let's call it that. I had thought by now that I'd be enjoying my third retirement. You know, and on days like this, I think I really would be enjoying my third retirement. But this is a fascinating and compelling job, and I'm glad to be here. And so I thought this morning I'd share some updates and hear from you as well, because it has been an interesting year, and in some ways a challenging year. On the interesting side, we've got a lot to be proud of. Just a few examples. First, in April, a groundbreaking study was released by the Parentology Research Branch of the National Institutes of Health, housed right here in the Wayne State Medical School at Hutzel Hospital. The study showed that premature births could be reduced by as much as 45% with a simple and low-cost procedure. This is, it was, and it is big news. The story was covered around the world, and we should be all proud of the work of Dr. Roberto Romero and Dr. Sonia Hassan and their colleagues. Next, our Live Midtown program with Henry Ford Health System and the DMC is encouraging people to move into the neighborhood. We've approved nearly 170 applications to date, and 78 of them have closed. We have a new Vice President of Economic Development, Ned Stabler, sitting right down here. There's so much going on and needed that we look for a pro to help drive economic development for Wayne State, and we found that pro in Ned. Next, on the facility side, we cut the ribbon, I guess it was last week, a couple of weeks ago, on a new athletic facility. We have a new planetarium, 2 new simulation labs in the College of Engineering, big progress on the renovation of chemistry, and it won't be long before we're cutting the ribbon for the new Damon J. Keith Center for Civil Rights at the law school. We have 4 new deans this year: Fashard Fatui for the College of Engineering, Hilary Ratner for the Graduate School, Carolyn Shields for the College of Education, and as just recently announced, Matt Seeger for the College of Fine, Performing, and Communication Arts. We're looking forward to great things from them. 3 deans are stepping down: Mark Wardell, Dave Williams, and Phyllis Vroom, and we honor their contributions to this university. At last spring's inauguration, and I really did enjoy that day, I was particularly impressed by an academic symposium that we held around noon of that day. It featured just a few of our talented faculty members, and they did a first-rate job of representing their colleagues and making us proud. What do we do in a big, high-powered university like this? Here's a short video with some of the highlights. Take a look.
We're only hearing a small little piece of the tip of an iceberg of Wayne State University. I've been here for many years at the university, and I had no idea of the broad range of research that is going on in all of these different areas. And it's really nice to hear all of this coming together.
I want to begin by telling you that Wayne State University is one of the only universities actually in this country that houses an intramural program of NIH, the Perinatology Research Branch. There is a window of opportunity that we are not condemned to have cerebral palsy, and that we can identify at the time of birth with molecular technique who is affected.
Wayne is actually one of only three programs in the United States in which American students are permitted or invited to train on an annual basis in Moscow.
Research, creativity, I think, just absolutely go hand in hand. And there isn't really much of a distinction between the two of them.
But the notion of creativity and freedom, and there was a question about creativity and how it can be sustained in children. One of the ways it seems to me is that the best advice for anything is a good example.
And two areas where my lab is interested in is contrast agents for magnetic resonance imaging. So we use the magnetic properties of the lanthanides to try and do things like diagnose tumors at an early stage or diagnose diseases. There's a lot of different stories that I could have chosen to tell, and there's a lot of great research. You could pick anybody here and tell a great story.
Because Wayne State is the only pediatric center in the country with both MRI and PET scanning capability in a pediatric center. And it's one of the reasons the children and their families come to Detroit from all over the country, because you're not going to find it in New York, you're not going to find it in Boston, you're not going to find it in Los Angeles. The only place you're going to find it is here in Detroit at Wayne State, the Detroit Medical Center, and the Children's Hospital of Michigan.
That was about 2.5 minutes. The total program was 2.5 hours. And we really only touched the surface of what's going on in this place. And as I said, I enjoyed it thoroughly, more importantly, and that the audience enjoyed it thoroughly. We have to think of some way, perhaps that's not the format, but some way of continuing to do such things so that, among other things, we know what's going on in Wayne State University, and then we can tell the rest of the world what's going on here. Next point. Faculty, of course, are the lifeblood of this university. Last year, we spoke about the need to hire more tenure and tenure-track faculty. We've hired 52 since this effort began, and there are more to come. Now, there's more good news, but let's turn to the challenging side, and it was the budget, of course, first and foremost. We recently approved the budget for the fiscal year starting October 1, the so-called 2012 fiscal year. It required absorbing a $32 million cut in state funding, and that meant a big increase in tuition, and it meant hard work and self-examination and sacrifice. I've been through this many times before. It's never easy, but sometimes it's necessary. Some of this cut came from operational efficiencies. Some came from the reduction of approximately 200 positions, many of which were open, but about 85 of which were filled. This is always a last resort. It's among the hardest realities we face. But we had little choice, and we did what we needed to do. We regret losing people who contributed to Wayne and who are our friends. Thank you to all of you who worked through this difficult process. I don't anticipate any increase in state funding for higher education. If anything, higher education has a target on its back. Over the past 2 weeks, Michigan State and Wayne State were summoned to Lansing to testify before the House Higher Education Subcommittee. Some legislators felt we were gaming the system by calculating the tuition increase from our most recent semester, the spring-summer semester. That was not the case. We weren't gaming the system, and the issue has been settled in our favor. But it's just another example of the scrutiny of higher education by the government and by others. I read an editorial in the Lansing State Journal during this latest tuition controversy. Here's a direct quote. "Beating up higher education has become a hobby of some at the Capitol. It's destructive, and given the reprehensible drop in state funding to universities over the past decade, it's also ridiculous. Michigan's universities are essential to its future economic prosperity. Harming them only hurts the state in the long term." I hope our state government agrees with the second part of the quote. Michigan needs its universities to be strong and to be strongly supported. But they in government also believe that universities need to change, to be more efficient, to be more productive, and to be more accountable. They won't be letting up on this anytime soon, and neither should we. Things are changing, and I don't want us to be the victims of change. I want us to lead the change. Because, as good as we are, we know we can do better. And I'd rather that we decide how to do this rather than someone in Lansing or in Washington, D.C. The good news is we're not waiting. For example, next year the budgeting process will be different. It was certainly obvious to an outsider like me, as we worked our way through the planning process this year, that our internal systems must be tied together better. This wasn't something we could tackle in the middle of the pressure of meeting the budget challenge, but we want to be ready for next year. I don't entirely know what ready means, but we're going to be much better prepared and much more efficient when we tie the budget system together with the accounting system and with other reporting systems we have. Additionally, I'm not pleased with how we organized faculty participation in the budget process. We must pay more attention to the quality of our programs and the potential quality when we allocate resources. The faculty didn't have this information this past year, and frankly, the administration's information wasn't adequate either. We are looking to fix this. And we expect various performance measures to be mandated by the state for year after next. On the same day a year ago, when the board introduced me to Wayne State, there was an article in the paper about our low graduation rates. It was a great start for a new president. We had a number of plans in place at the time to improve retention and graduation rates, and they were and they are working. But we need to do more and faster. This is one of the main criteria, incidentally, on which we will be measured by the state. Now, there are many factors, of course, that determine student success. It has something to do with the student's dedication and energy and attention and intensity and attendance and a few other things. But it also includes things we're responsible for: recruitment, service, academic requirements, financial support, housing, advising, remediation. You'll see expanded programs and better programs over the next months. And fundamental is our admissions policy. Who should attend Wayne State University? In my inauguration remarks, I said that we're a university of opportunity, and that opportunity must mean we leave the door open wide for those with the talent and the will to be successful, even if their high school grades couldn't get them into more exclusive schools. But opportunity does not mean we can allow students to attend who are unlikely to succeed here. This is unfair to them, it's unfair to us, and it's unfair to the taxpayers. We've done a good deal of analysis in this area. We're doing more. We're working to develop a profile of the students who will succeed here and a profile of the students who will not. But it's more than numbers. It's beyond the profiles. We have an obligation to look deeper, to take a balanced view, to take a chance on some students who might not be admitted to the exclusive schools and help them succeed here, and to suggest alternatives to those who we expect will not succeed here. Wayne State is a major research university. It takes years of hard work to graduate. We shouldn't make it impossible for some students to graduate by making it too easy to get in. On the other hand, we don't intend to just become another exclusive university, but neither can we be expected to compensate for inadequate primary and secondary education. So we must do what's right for the students, each individual student, because their success is our success. And if we admit students who can't succeed, it's our failure as well. Their failure is our failure. So our plan is to do what's right. You'll hear more about this, I hope, in a fairly short number of weeks as we work away on this very major project we have underway. Now, I reported to you several times, and you're probably sick of hearing about it and wonder what they're ever going to do, that we'd retained the Huron Consulting Group to analyze their administrative processes and provide recommendations for improvement. They did so, and we recently received and reviewed the final report. There's a great deal of detail in the report, and we're going to be sharing highlights with you in the near future. You can expect to see changes in a number of areas, in a large number of areas. Some examples: CNIT is being restructured to partner across campus far more efficiently. Now our surveys show CNIT is a well-respected and an efficient organization. So we start from a good base, but this is further improvement. Our purchasing processes will change significantly, adopting technology where appropriate, implementing strategic sourcing, and redesigning the entire purchasing and payment cycle. Our travel policy will be simplified and automated, and that will be done before the end of the year. We're streamlining facilities planning and management to boost productivity, increase transparency, and conserve energy. In enrollment services, we're adopting a much more strategic approach, particularly with our financial aid and admissions processes. The operations will be better integrated and better automated, and I'll add more on this in just a moment. Our HR services will change to be more efficient and to better attract and retain the talent we need to keep this university strong. There are many other recommendations we'll be discussing, and as I said, we're providing you more information as the weeks and months go by, but not too many of the weeks and months. On one part of these, and you may recall some surveys earlier in the year, we took a hard look at customer service. We did this before we got Huron retained. And so you were asked, many of you, to fill out a survey. We asked students, we asked faculty, we asked staff, we asked administration, anybody else, for their service on a wide array of the functions where service, if you will, is the definition of what they're doing. There weren't any big surprises. The surveys, incidentally, for most part, were consistent among the groups. So it wasn't one group was here and another group was there. There was a consistent set of reactions. And they confirmed what we already suspected. Some things we do pretty well, and some things we don't do so well, and we're going to improve. And one of the outcomes of looking into this, combined with the work that Huron Consulting did, is the new enrollment services approach in admissions, as I mentioned. It'll be implemented at the Welcome Center, and I think it's by October 1st, but anyway, it's close at hand. So at the Welcome Center, one-stop shopping to help the students apply, register, and follow up on a whole bunch of things. So instead of wandering around the campus looking for places, registration, housing, financial aid will all be in one place. And the students can get the help they need in one place. There are other areas where we're assessing all the time to see if we can do better. Development and Alumni Affairs has just completed an analysis of their operations, and they will soon be adopting a model much more integrated with the unique needs of each of the schools and colleges. That's a fancy way of saying that alumni graduate from a specific school or college, and the deans and chairs and faculty are key to fundraising. So obviously there's a lot going on. As I've sort of thought about what's happened and what else we should be doing, I found a couple of things very satisfying. First, these aren't just exercises in bureaucracy. They're about making us better, if anything, getting rid of bureaucracy. And Ron Brown introduced a committee which has done its final report just recently on dysfunctional rules. They were able to find some. And so we're going to be working on that. And second, and I think Ron found this in this work that he did there, I've been pleased by the willingness and the cooperation from those who were involved. This isn't always true in big organizations, especially those that have been around the better part of 150 years. There's a natural resistance to change. It is considered a very good idea for someone else, but not so much for me in my area. And so we got some of that here. But mostly, I've seen people willing to look at things differently, to see how we can make this a better place. And this is the spirit that we do need. You know, when I'm asked to describe Wayne State, I say that it's a unique place. We offer a combination that no other Michigan university offers. First of all, we're a comprehensive research university with the academic quality and rigor demanded by such a title. Second, we're in Detroit, and Detroit is in us, which means we have culture and sports and businesses and about everything else you can think of, which means we have the attitude and spunk and pride of a city that refuses to be cowed by negativity and continually finds ways to reinvent itself. And third, our campus and community have a diversity of businesses, culture, and most importantly, people. That diversity that looks like the real world out there, the one we're preparing our students for. And from all indications, we do a pretty good job of it because our students leave here with knowledge they can actually apply and with adaptability and creativity for the inevitable changes that will come. They are prepared. And isn't that what we're really here for? We have a chance to build on this, to make it even better. But you know, we can't get there without everyone's involvement. We don't have to wait for any more reports. Small things can make a big difference. We all contribute every day in some ways to the bigger goals of this university, whether in the lab, in the front of a classroom, helping a student, trimming the trees. Is there a way to do it better? Can we be more welcoming to students, to visitors? Can we be more helpful to students, visitors, to each other? Internal courtesy and helpfulness. We'll have plenty of opportunity, incidentally, at the end of the month when the campus comes to life again. We've got new leadership in some of our schools and colleges. We've got a brand new group of students coming to campus, one of the best prepared classes we've seen. We've got visitors from all around the country. We've got a fresh start, maybe even some cool weather. And this should make us excited about the future, excited about what we do, about this great calling. Thank you for all you do. I look forward to great success in the year ahead.
Thank you, Allan.
And here come the questions.
Here comes the easy part. And folks, if you've got questions, think about them, and we'll turn the mic over to you in a little bit. Let's get this one out of the way. There were several questions in the RSVPs like this. There are rumors that there will be several rounds of reduction in force currently underway. Are there more layoffs coming?
No. No, we have done it. Now, never is a long while. We all know that. And so we can't predict what's going to happen down the road. But for the foreseeable future, nothing planned.
What are you expecting from employees with regards to achieving new standards for the university?
I guess I'll change the question a little bit and delete.
Feel free.
And see if I can find one that has an answer. And delete the word employees and put in all of us. What do we expect for all of us as we go ahead? We expect dedication. Dedication to the work that has to be done around this place, regardless of the level of the work, or, if you will, the obviousness of the work. Some of our work is very visible. Some of our work isn't very visible. Doesn't mean it's not important. It all has to get done. So we've got to have dedication. We've got to have something we're going to be talking about in the future, in the near future, I hope. We've got to have one heck of a lot better training and education of all of us. Ron Brown spent part of last week at the School for New Provosts, and I'm delighted to report he passed. It was close, but, but it did. We got to do that for all of us, not to go to Provost school, but to be sure that we are up to date, that we know how to do our jobs as well as we possibly can. And isn't it interesting? In a big university, which is in the education business, broadly defined, we do a terrible job of educating our own people. Got to change that, okay? Third, collaboration. Work with each other. You know, big organizations have silos. That's the word that followed chimneys. That's the word I can't remember that followed because I'm not that old. We've all had these, you know. I do this and I don't talk to them because, number one, they don't know much, and I'm doing important work, and besides, how are we going to do all this? That's what students are for. They can run back and forth and see if they can straighten out this mess. Working with each other. I doubt that how we're organized is the right way. No one has told us a better way yet. So in the meantime, we put together sorts of mechanisms, task forces, committees, groupings of various people to work on projects. But beyond that, we work together, because when someone has a question, we do not say, that's not my responsibility, or I don't know. We help that person, and not by saying, would you leave me alone, but help the person to figure out how to get that answer. And so a whole question of collaboration and working together better. I guess those are the things I'd react to first.
Thank you. You covered this a little bit. Is there any hope for restored funding in the future from the state legislature?
I think the answer probably is no. And why am I so positively negative? I thought probably 3 months ago the answer was closer to being yes. And I changed my mind because of the national and therefore the state economy. Where is the state going to get the money? And when it does get any, if it does, where is it going to go? But if the economy slows down, I mean, it's not going below zero, we hope, in terms of growth, but with a slower growth rate, the tax receipts will be lower. So there'll be less income tax, less sales tax, less gas tax, less whatever coming into Lansing than I would have thought 3 months ago or 6 months ago, or I think that the administration had thought in Lansing. So that's the first issue. Will there be any more resources coming in the door? The second issue is that clearly the governor and the administration want to put, as we call them, a terrible word, metrics on what universities do, and I alluded to some of that. That may well mean that next year's base budget is the same as this year's base budget, but part of that base will depend on performance, I should say year after next. We're fixed for 2011 and 12, but 12 and 13. We may have measures. They may be negative measures if you don't meet the objectives. And it is possible, therefore, that the money will decline, not go up. Now, is it possible that Washington has more money? Well, if they do, they've certainly kept it a secret recently, haven't they? So we don't need to come up with great ideas there. Now, obviously, we're going to be working in various departments that have programs, federal departments that have programs that may have to do with higher education. But they aren't going to be general. This isn't going to be general money we can spread around. It'll be specific for specific programs with probably short time spans of things of this kind. So I think we have to go on the assumption that we aren't going to see any substantial increase or perhaps any increase at all in funding from state or federal sources. Where are we going to find some money? We're going to have to do more research with businesses. We've relied largely in our university on doing research with federal agencies, to a lesser extent state. But Farshad already is working in his College of Engineering on how do we work with local businesses and have them, if you will, outsource some of their research to us. And that will bring in some money. Again, not general funds, but specific anyway, and those things are useful, of course, as we go ahead. We will have to do more in philanthropy. We already know that. We're already putting together our thoughts for a major campaign going forward. But if any of you want to contribute in the meantime, don't wait. We're going to take all the money that comes in. And incidentally, I do want to point this out. Everything that does come in between now and the end of 2018, or whenever we bring a big campaign to an end, the one we haven't started yet, does count. Because otherwise we'll all be driven crazy. This doesn't count and this does count. So everything is going to count as we go forward. And one of the things I have to do, not alone, but I have to spend a lot of time on it, is what I describe as being the retailer of Wayne. My job is to talk with everyone I can find that will listen about what goes on in Wayne State University, why, what we're doing, why, and how other people can participate, first can understand, and second, participate in our success. Remember also that people do not give money to our needs, they give money to their interests. And so we're going to do a lot of matching in the next months. Yes, we're going to figure out what our needs are, but we're going to want to package them, and I don't say this in the negative sense of the word, into things that will be attractive to people or corporations or foundations to give money here. So let me just mention one other thing. I don't know whether it has anything with a question or not, but I've got to mention it before I forget it.
You're doing just fine.
We've got to increase our enrollment. That's the source of money. And to the extent that added enrollment brings in more money than it costs to educate the students, we'll be ahead. We have done a terrific job in this upcoming fall semester of attracting students from community colleges. You know, community colleges are one of the booms of recent history here. Good Lord, we went out to visit, and Ahmad can't be here this morning because he's with Mayor Bing, and when he asked where he should go, I said, I think probably Mayor Bing. There are 25,000 students in Macomb Community College, and roughly the same number in Oakland Community College. Now, most of those students do not go on to a four-year institution, but some do, and we haven't been getting our fair share, and we've got that effort underway. Retention will help on budget, because there's, you know, if we bring in a lot of freshmen, but down they go like this, and so we don't have any seniors, we'd like their money for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, however long it takes to graduate. So those are going to be sources of revenue. If that has anything to do with the state appropriation, I don't know. But I wanted to get out the point that if the assumption is, and I think it's a realistic assumption, there's no consequential money, more money available from the state, we've got to find our own.
Thank you. What partnerships do you see as important for the university to form or support, and why?
You know, the governor has talked about public-private partnerships. My first reaction was, I don't think I know what he means, and I'm not sure I do now. But I do think it's some of the things we talked about, for example, doing research with businesses and businesses doing research with us. And engineering is a good example, but not the only example. The business school is another example, for example. A lot of examples this morning. And the medical school and the pharmacy school with pharmaceutical companies and nursing with various companies in that business, et cetera. As we find that for-profit organizations come into what used to be not-for-profit fields, in many ways they're going to want to work with universities. And we've got to have partnerships there that will be beneficial to both sides. Economic development, Ned Stabler's area. It's going to be a combination of businesses and not-for-profits that make this happen. A fair percentage of the research will come out of universities like this. And I'm thinking largely when I say that of applied research or translational research, not way up here research. Not that I'm against that, we need it, but I'm thinking of the partnerships and getting it out into the market, if you will, the products, the services, or whatever. TechTown is a big asset on that, because they're going to be expanding as time goes on, with new money coming in, we expect, with new programs, and with some ways of financing startup businesses. And so those are going to be some things that we're going to want to be tied into, not only through TechTown, but through our various activities within the university. Who else can we be partners with? There are people who suggest, well, I'll back up, the community colleges. Let's go back to that. When we visited Wayne County Community College, Dr. Ivory said, what do you think of a program of 2-2-2? He, more than us, but together, his organization, would identify high school sophomores with potential. And so we would be paying attention, we, Wayne State, we Wayne County Community College and the high school to those students in their junior and senior years in high school. Then they would have 2 years at Wayne County Community College, and then they would have 2 years here. That's the kind of partnership we need to think about. The old bright lines between elementary or primary, secondary, higher education, graduate school, etc., they're gone. One other one, and I'll stop talking on this. We haven't done nearly the job I think there's potential to do in what we used to call continuing education or returning to get experience. And it can be a weekend, a night, a month, or Lord knows what, where companies, or not-for-profits too, health systems and so forth, will sponsor special programs that we would put on. We've got the wherewithal to bring up to date people who are gradually in their daily work falling behind the best thinking or broader thinking. I was daydreaming this morning when I should have been working, probably. Ford introduced an executive development program roughly 25 years ago and brought in ultimately the top 3,000 or 4,000 people from around the world. Did it at Rensan. We owned it. We might as well use it for something. And so the first big thing was that people learned, oh my God, this is a big company. I didn't know that people in Europe did this, or South America did that, or in scientific research did this, or marketing did that. Isn't this interesting? I thought they were just overhead. The only work I thought was important was mine. Gee, a lot of people are learning things. Second point, we had a lot of outside professors and experts, some of whom are then professors and now are rich consultants, if that's not a redundant term, talk. The most popular one was a professor of philosophy. What's this all about? What is the value of working at Ford Motor Company? Yeah, paycheck, that's good. Better than certainly none. But if you think more broadly, what are you contributing? What are you doing? And think of what we could do, what we could put together with the kind of faculty members we have to broaden the horizons of rising business people or healthcare people or whatever kinds of people right here. So there are opportunities for us to get some money in the door and to have a heck of a lot of fun while doing it.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to offer at this time?
They must be waiting for the matinee.
I have more questions, so if they're shy, we can deal with that. This was, you said a little bit about this, Allan. Nobody yet? Somebody's making their way up? I'll give you a second. Thanks for being the first customer.
That's right.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Ram from the School of Medicine, and I'm also a member of the Urban Watershed Environment Research Group, and with the recent economic news and budget news, I'm sort of feeling that the entire university is joining us underwater.
Right.
But I'm looking ahead to more prosperous times, and I'm wondering how you're going to decide what sort of projects the capital campaign for 2018 will be looking to get development monies and federal monies, state monies for.
A very good question. Thank you for asking that, Doctor. The quick answer is we don't know yet. I've got a meeting this afternoon with 2 of the Huron partners to discuss strategic planning. And they are coming to try to convince this Neanderthal that there's value in strategic planning. Because have been generally convinced, whether it was at Ford or in the nonprofit world or on corporate boards, that it was a very interesting exercise that was largely of limited value. Very nice papers, nicely filed, and promptly forgotten. But before we wander out asking for consequential money, we have to know what we want the money for. And so we will be, within the next few months, really not a large number of months, trying to figure out how we set those priorities. Let me give you, and Ron Brown as the provost may disown this, and we'll give him the opportunity to do so, I want to figure out how we do two things. There's three. It'll be so broad that you may wonder whether it's of any value or not. I want to do three things concurrently. I want to figure out, and these are not in order. Number one, how do we optimize or maximize the undergraduate experience here? Because I'm not convinced it's as good as it should be. We don't want to leave those people behind. Because if everything else fails, we must be a successful undergraduate experience in this university. And then at the graduate level, I want to figure out what relative emphasis we put on the professional schools and on research. We have a great reputation for research. It would be easy to lose it, and it's hard to get back, as we always know. It's always easier to go downhill than it is uphill for some reason. And so we're going to be working on those kinds of things to see how we put these together. Now let me toss out a few more confusing facts or confusing opinions. Online learning may change our need for buildings. And so it may be that we need less buildings. I'm not suggesting we auction off any at this particular point. But what kinds of buildings, where, used when? The old days that the students used to come at 8 and stay until 4, and now they don't. But anyway, those days are largely over. And we are not going to be Williams and Amherst and Swarthmore and Wesleyan and other places, or we're not going to be, for that matter, Alba and Albion and Hope and a few others you can think of. So what does it mean for buildings? We know that research takes I'll back up. We know that scientific research takes a heck of a lot of capital. How do we fit that in? The professional schools, leaving aside medicine, nursing, things like this, are not terribly capital intensive. Business, law, take those as the most obvious examples. How do we soup them up to be sure that we are where we need to be? Now, what do I find after all that wandering around as common denominators? Chairs, endowed chairs. Because whether we are online or offline or wherever we are on the line, we're going to need the best possible faculty. And chairs is one way of getting that. And besides, if I give the money for a great building and then they tear it down in 20 years and throw my money in the wastebasket, or 50 years or 100 or whatever, won't be me, but my relatives might be upset. Chairs can linger is the poor word, can continue for a very, very long while. I was not thinking of the incumbents, I was thinking of the furniture, of course. But that's something we need to be thinking about. We need to be thinking as well as to how much we want to put into financial aid. We are in the process in higher education of pricing ourselves out of the market. How do we stop that? Financial aid is what we used to call in the car business discounts, or incentives, or whatever other term we thought of to cut prices. Is that a good idea? So we got to be thinking about that going forward. So if at the end of this you understand my priorities, congratulations, because I don't. But we've got to think of these things as we go ahead. I don't see at this point, when I think of professional schools, when I think of research, when I think of other graduates' work as well, when I think of undergraduate, I don't think of any kids we're going to toss overboard. Now, we're going to have to be, as we are in all of the budget years, whether it's last past year, the next year, and the ones after, very decisive, very tough, very objective on various programs. No question about that. Because some will become obsolete, some are going to be changed by technology, who knows what. But in the major efforts of this university, we've got to figure out how we succeed in each of them and how we put what kinds of money in each one. Does anyone have an easier question?
I don't think so.
Oh.
We do have some questions from the audience to which we're
I thought that was the peanut gallery there. Anyway.
Nope, they're working hard over there. And there are a few about layoffs, Allan, and one says morale is low due to the layoffs. What are your plans, or what can we do to renew the spirit of employees who have lost faith in WSU?
It's difficult. As I said before, these things are tough. And obviously the toughest, of course, on the people involved. not just people like me. Any organization I've ever been in had its best morale when things were going well. I think we have a lot of things that are going well in this university. I think we'll have a lot of things going well in this upcoming academic year as well. You know, I woke up early this morning because I remembered I had to come to work and do this. And I heard the story on the radio of one of our grad students, a female grad student who was an All-American swimmer here. And she is starting today to swim from Green Bay, Wisconsin to, I was going to say Muskegon, but I don't think that's right. Anyway, if she gets across by the end of tomorrow, that's her objective, she'll be the first female that's ever crossed Lake Michigan that distance. She did point out that in the lake there are no lanes marked. It was funny, the other day I came back from California, and in the plane it was one of those map things. You could see where you were crossing state lines. I looked down and they don't draw a single line down there. I don't know why they don't, so we'd know where we are. But isn't it exciting when you think about that person, All-American swimmer, graduate student here, undertaking that kind of activity, obviously on her own. And that's what makes you excited about this place. Because when those, I call them kids, and some faculty members say don't call them kids, they're older than that. At my age, many people are kids. But when the people are back here at the end of this month, and this campus is alive and exciting, and your classes are underway, and the labs are underway, and the athletic fields are underway, and a whole bunch of other things, the theater is underway. Think about what we do in this place. I don't want to minimize what we've been through at Wayne State. I don't want to minimize the tough times we have ahead. But think of other kinds of endeavors here in metropolitan Detroit and in Michigan that have been hit much more toughly, if there's such a thing, had much more difficult times than we have. We have two automotive types that went bankrupt. So it is tough times around. But we are doing important things, and we're doing it with the future of our area and our country. And I think we can be very proud of that. So the best morale that I can figure is to do our jobs well, be excited about what we're doing, be involved, be pushing, and join me in being a retailer of Wayne and telling people what we're doing.
Thank you. Anybody else like to step to the microphone? Please.
Good morning. I am Richard Luhrmann from the School of Business. I was wondering, Wayne State owns a lot of assets and land and buildings and retail space. I was wondering if there's any thought of utilizing that to increase our revenue?
Yes, there is. We are fortunate. You may know that Ahmad Ezzedine, who's with the mayor at this hour, put together this Detroit Revitalization Fellows program. We were assigned one of the fellows, and that person is going to work on retail and what we've got for space and what we've got for tenants and how we can do a better job there. Furthermore, in terms of land, it's just me echoing, or is the whole place? North of 94, in the Tech Town area, we've got assets there. And we'll be working with the New Economy Initiative, which is the organization that's helping economic development in our whole area, giving us money for new kinds of programs. One of those is to figure out how to use those real estate assets. I had not thought of this at all, along with a number of other things in my life I hadn't thought of. If we have graduates of Tech Town, in other words, someone comes in, I want to learn how to start a new business, they do. We've got some space there. But suppose they have big success. We don't have any space for big success. We've got places for, those that got 10 employees or 14 or 3 or something. But suppose one gets 100 or 200 or 1,000. We don't want them to leave. So we've got to think about how to use that real estate around, not just there, but around here, between here and Henry Ford Health System, for example, and also east. We have plenty of land in Detroit, and how we can do that. So this is one of the things we're going to be working on. But it's a good question. I do not, other than being the retailer of Wayne, I do not wish us to be in the retail business because it's too hard. But I do want to be sure that we utilize to the extent we can the space we already have and think about what our future prospects are.
Thank you.
Oh, here's a question right down here.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning.
Hi.
I would like to ask, what are we doing about recruiting international students from an undergrad all the way to grad school, where they will be paying a higher premium, you know, for their education? Are we reaching out to other richer countries than ours?
Yes, we are. And we have a long way to go in this. And of course, part of it is our immigration policies in this country. As soon as we educate them, we don't want to keep them because they might be successful. We don't want that. I'm kidding, needless to say. And that's why I was delighted that the governor was here to talk about immigration a few weeks ago, because this is a big issue that we have to tackle. But the answer is yes, we need more international students. Ahmad Azadine has that on his list of to-dos. And I think we'll find this fall that we've made some progress, but we've got to get out, and we've got to use resources. Ahmad can't do this as a soloist. We've got to get out, and he's got people working for him, but not many. But we've got to get out and talk and sell. So it's something that we have to get done. Incidentally, we get to get more out-of-state students here too. Rob gave me numbers this morning, Rob Corman. In Ann Arbor, 66% of the undergraduates come from the state of Michigan. At Wayne State, 96% come. That difference in tuition, wouldn't that be fun to just put in our pockets? And we've got capacity in our pockets, and we've got capacity in our classrooms and labs and other places and fields for them. So this is another part of our marketing. No, are we going to have zillions of students coming from out of state to Wayne State? Not in the short run. But if we don't get started and do the outreach in the broadest sense, we won't get that job done. And I know from, this is probably a confidential comment, so therefore I'll say it softly. Before I got this job, I was on the President's Advisory Group in Ann Arbor, which met twice a year with Mary Sue Coleman. And one way to improve the financial situation in Ann Arbor was get more out-of-state students. Now, it used to be the legislators put on a big fuss if we took too many out-of-state students. Well, if they want us to take more in-state students, there's one easy way: send more money. So you can't have it both, well, in legislation you can have it both ways. But for the rest of us, you can't have it both ways.
Anybody else for the microphone? Okay, here's one from online. What factors are the president and the board looking at to determine whether or not future cuts or hiring will be coming?
Nothing for the foreseeable future. The biggest risk is a budget that we have to start preparing, I suppose, in 8 or 10 months. Not for this fall, obviously, but for the fall after that. If we find that the state appropriation is where it is now, and I think that's the best assumption, and if we have big inflation in this country, then we would have a cost squeeze. We would have our costs going up with our revenue largely fixed. We would do all the things we've talked about, whether it's enrollments from overseas or out of state, or new programs, or all sorts of things we can think of, and contributions and so forth. But we could find ourselves in a price-cost squeeze. Now, with inflation, you would expect, therefore, tuition to go up more than it would on average, because the prices of everything would be going up. But sometimes the costs get here before the prices do. And so that could be a difficult situation. But leaving that aside, as I said at the beginning, there are no plans to squeeze the structure from where we are now. Now, that doesn't mean I think we're perfect. I think one thing we learned in the budget process is we're not perfect. And we can find places, as you can in any organization, where we may have too many resources. We can find places we'll have too few. One of our tasks in the budget going forward is going to be to look across more thoroughly, as I mentioned, with better quality information as to where we should be putting resources and what we should be doing with those resources. But that's down the road. That's not a change in the totality of the resource base.
Okay, thank you. One more. We're about at the time, but This was from about students, so we hadn't heard from them. So online, one of the questions is, what can students do to help the university be all it can be? To steal from the Army advertising slogan.
All it can be, right. I was enormously pleased. I think it was back when we were having Scholars Days in February, to talk with students who were going back to the high schools that they had graduated from, and talking with the counselors. On their own, they were doing this about Wayne State. And so I asked them to join me in being retailers of Wayne. Now, Rob, in leading the effort on admissions, has already incorporated a lot of that, so they don't need to be soloists anymore. And so we're using the students, younger graduates, whoever we can find, to talk with the students in high schools, counselors, and so forth. You know, that just shows that budget's ended, I guess, for this event. You know, way back in my youth at Ford, when we recruited people from business schools, who did we send to do the recruiting? We sent younger graduates from that place. We did not send, and I'll be nasty about this, old HR professionals. Because as I snidely described one of them, and when I was in Ann Arbor, he was full of bull and benefits. He told me about my life insurance. And you know, at the age of 25, that was not one of the key things I was interested in. I wanted to talk with people who would describe what was going on, how I'd fit in, what the excitement was, what the business did, etc. That's what I want us doing when we're out recruiting high school students to come here too. What's Wayne all about? What is the unique proposition of Wayne? Why should I come here, other than they let me in? That's one good reason to come. But beyond that, what's good about Wayne? Why should I be here? And I'd love to have the students doing all the talking they possibly can about that. And I think that's the most important thing, in addition to please study hard, please attend class, please do all the things you're supposed to do as a student. Talk up Wayne. And incidentally, if they see things that they think should be improved, tell us. It does not need to go through the south end to get to us. But I suppose it can. But just come and say, hey, why aren't you doing this? Or have you paid attention to that? I have rarely seen the organization that had too many ideas. Okay?
Yes, and I guess talking up Wayne perhaps applies to all of us.
I guess it does. Yeah, I guess that's right.
Great answer. I believe we're at time, Allan, so thank you all for coming. I don't know if you have any closing remarks before we end or not.
Let me say over again 2 important words. Thank you. I was going to say, I realize what you do, and then I thought to myself, oh, no, I don't. I don't realize at all what you do. But we all appreciate, from the board, and me, and the cabinet, and all of the structure, what everyone does in this place to make it successful. So thank you for coming today. We look forward to an exciting fall starting soon, and I appreciate everything you do. Thanks.